Hi, this is Zach with Domo Customer Success. In this video, I'll be demonstrating some techniques you can use to create cards that compare values from different periods side by side. This type of comparison is known as a period-over-period comparison and can be used for comparing years, quarters, months, days, and so on. Some of the techniques we'll be using will require some advanced beast mode skills. If you find that you are unfamiliar with the functions or syntax involved, please visit the Help Center or the Dojo community to find more information on building beast mode calculations. This card is currently showing our gross revenue by month. This is a common visualization that can help us understand big picture trends in our revenue over time. Sometimes it could also be helpful to see and compare more granular time periods side by side on the same timeline. For example, imagine that we'd like to compare how much revenue we brought in this month compared to how much revenue we brought in the same month last year, and we'd like to see it broken up day by day. This type of visualization can be done using a period-over-period chart in Analyzer. If we need to compare multiple metrics, however, the period-over-period chart types will no longer work, as they are built to work with a single metric only. Instead, we'll create beast mode formulas to represent each data point we want to see together. For this example, these will be last year's revenue, this year's revenue, last year's orders, and this year's orders. We'll also adjust our chart properties to allow us to see these metrics as running totals. Let's begin by editing the card and creating a beast mode filter to limit the data to just the records for this month and the same month last year. To do this, click Add Calculated Field in the bottom left of the Analyzer screen. We'll give our new formula a name. We'll call this Filter Dates. In this formula, we'll be using a case statement to help us filter the records. We'll be using the last day function to see if the value in the date falls into the same month and year as the date returned by the current date function. Last day will return the date for the last day of the month for the date value passed into it. We also want to include records that would fall into the same month and year if they were projected onto this year. To do this, we'll use the date add function to project the value from the date column 52 weeks ahead, and then use the last day function again to compare the months and years. Finally, we'll add an else clause to our case statement that will return the value of false for any other records that don't meet our criteria. Next, you'll want to validate the formula. Looks like it's working properly, so we'll click Save and Close. We can now use this field to limit our records to just the set we care about. To do this, drag our new Filter Dates column into the Filters section. We want to include records that returned a true value, so I'll check this box and click Apply. Now in this example, we decided that we would like to see our data broken down day by day, so let's adjust our date settings to reflect that. We've now designed a card that shows just the records we want to see, but the way they're being displayed is not very useful yet. We still need to project the values from last year forward so that they appear in the same time period as the values for this year. To do this, we'll create another beast mode calculation. Click Add Calculated Field again. We'll call this beast mode Projected Date. And we'll be using many of the same functions we used last time to push dates from the previous year forward 52 weeks. The formula looks like this. If the value in the date field is already in the current month and year, then we want to leave it alone and just return the date value. Otherwise, we'll return the date value after 52 weeks have been added to it. Now again, we click the Validate Formula button, and then Save and Close. And we can now use this new formula as our x-axis value. What we're seeing now is the total of the revenue column for both years summed together day by day. We'd like to break these values up into last year's revenue and this year's revenue. Let's start with last year's revenue. First, click Add Calculated Field and put in a name for this calculation. For this calculation, we sum all the values of amount where the date for the order falls into the current month after we project it forward 52 weeks. Here's how that would look. Validate the formula and click Save and Close. The calculation for this year's revenue will be similar. Click Add Calculated Field We'll call this beast mode this year's revenue. And for this calculation, we'll sum all the values of amount where the date for the order falls into the current month. Validate the formula, and click Save and Close. Now let's add these two fields to our card. Next, let's build a field for last year's orders. Click Add Calculated Field. We'll call this beast mode Last Year's Orders. For this calculation, we use the sum function to conditionally count records that fall into the current month after we project them forward 52 weeks. Here's how that will look. Validate the formula and click Save and Close. Next, we'll build this year's orders. Click Add Calculated Field again. We'll call this beast mode This Year's Orders. For this calculation, we'll conditionally count all the records where the date for the order falls into the current month. Validate the formula and click Save and Close. Now let's add these new fields to our card as well. Now we have a slight problem. Comparing both of these sets of values on the same scale won't be very effective. So to better show both of these values, we could use the line plus grouped bar chart type. Now we'll adjust our chart properties to have the right number of lines on the left scale versus bars on the right scale, and set our number of running total lines and bars to 2 each. What we're seeing now is a card that compares values from this month and the same month last year for both the total revenue and the total number of orders placed. And that's how we create a period-over-period comparison chart with beast modes.